Okay, welcome to the Commonwealth Club World Affairs here in San Francisco. We have a live audience today, and if more people come in, we'll just accommodate them as they arrive. We've also got an online audience today who are going to be following this program. I'm Robert Lee Kilpatrick. I'm the chair of the Health and Medicine Member-Led Forum here at the Commonwealth Club. I'm also the host of the Healthy Society series that we've been doing for 6 years, looking at, issues that affect real people living real lives in places like San Francisco. And of course, this program is a perfect part of that. I'm also a trustee of the Board of Governors here. And I often say to people, particularly during turbulent times, I think the Commonwealth Club represents the best of America. This is a place where you can bring any interesting idea, new book, concept, and we encourage cooperation, collaboration, and the ability to have conversations across divides. And it's pretty much a place where anybody who's important in the country eventually comes. So you're a member of the audience, and guess what? So am I. So part of my job is to help our speakers today give their best to us, but I've never heard this story myself. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say. I look forward to seeing your slideshow. The Commonwealth Club is the oldest and largest public affairs forum in the nation. And I've been a member since I was a college student. It was one of the best things I ever did. It's very inexpensive to become a member, and there's so many benefits. So if you're not yet a member, I encourage you to sign up. You can go to commonwealthclub.org and learn more. So today, we are about to hear a program, Will It Ever End? San Francisco's drug and homeless crisis and overdose epidemic. And we have 3 people with us today who, from different perspectives, are deeply involved, are super knowledgeable, and committed to solving this problem with lots of other people. So to my left here is Destiny Pletch, and she's the Deputy Executive Director of the Way Out program, and she'll be giving us the slide presentation today. To her left is Major Michael Zielinski, who's the Division Commander of the Salvation Army Golden State Division, San Francisco. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then Steve Adami, who is the Executive Director of the Way Out. So without further ado, Destiny, why don't you take us through this amazing story?
Thank you, Robert. Hi, everyone. Welcome here today. We're so excited to have you and have you learn a little bit more about the work that we're doing here in San Francisco and to address the question that's all on our mind right now as we look across our city and with those struggling with addiction and the visible homelessness. Is the slide ready? So we're really excited that you're interested in this topic, and we hope to elaborate on the Salvation Army's solution here in San Francisco through the Way Out initiative. So first, as a preface, who the Salvation Army is. We have a long-standing footprint here in San Francisco. We've been around in the city for over 143 years, and we are not new to this work. We have been in the recovery and healing space for quite some time. And we have served anyone who's in need that comes through our doors, whether those are people who are struggling with homelessness or families. And so we have a breadth of services that serve over 1,000 people each night. You can count on 1,000 people who are sleeping in a Salvation Army bed. That's really, really significant as we talk about our impact to the overall city. And then we have a strict policy of non-discrimination, meaning we serve everybody who comes through our doors. And so that's really important as we are striving to be a welcoming space for anybody who's seeking treatment when they need it. So San Francisco, as I mentioned, it's a very visible problem. 19,000 people cycle in and out of homelessness each year. And we have at any given time 8,323 people, according to our point in time homeless count, who are sheltered, both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. So homelessness looks different. I want to be really clear. And we're really focused on the intersection of homelessness and addiction. So I want to, again, preface our conversation. We are really talking about here in San Francisco, those who are chronically homeless. And we have some statistics on the screen that show that San Francisco is unique in our homelessness problem, meaning that 35% of people are chronically homeless, and 52% of those who are homeless self-reported that they had issues with addiction. Now, those numbers alone are not very, they might not seem compelling, but if you compare that with the national average, around 25%, it gives you a little bit of a comparison of where San Francisco stands in who we are serving, who we're striving to serve, and where the need is. So it doesn't take, I think anybody who's familiar with San Francisco politics understands how large our budget is and how much money has been put in toward this direction in addressing this problem. The graph that you can see on the chart here shows that between 2013 and 2024, that city departments have put a lot of money into this problem. 544% increase over time. And yet we see the problem persist. 19%, it's actually grown over the course of the same time period. And so it begs the question, why isn't it getting better? It really is striking that this is not a money problem. There is something deeper afoot. And so I think that the way out really tries to get to that larger, deeper problem. Some more statistics to kind of illustrate where we're at is that currently in our Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing system, 80% of those who are in our shelters actually go back to the streets. That's terrible. That is not success. And for everyone that we have housed since 2020, we've lost over 4,500 lives and most of those deaths occurred in permanent supportive housing, that is government-funded housing. And again, so that tells us, it leads us to believe that housing is not merely the solution. Money, housing is not it. And so what can we do as the Salvation Army, a leader in recovery and treatment services, what can we do to solve this crisis? Introducing the way out. The Way Out is a recovery-focused homelessness initiative that really, again, focuses on the intersection of addiction and homelessness and utilizes and coordinates all of San Francisco's local programs and services to address the underlying issues through a recovery system of care. And we'll go into what that looks like. But really, this recovery system care, this coordinated network of programs, have 4 goals. And that's to get people off the streets fast. Let's get people off the streets and into care so that they can have their lives back. They can reclaim their lives after drug use. And then create a culture of hope, because we know that this is not just a individual issue. This impacts lives of family members and children, and we want to break this intergenerational impact of drug use factors. And so this is a illustration of our recovery system of care, or kind of our theory behind how we've coordinated the Salvation Army of San Francisco, our local services. This idea that people can come off the streets in real time through our treatment on demand and either go to a pre-treatment shelter, or they can enter into our detox services. From there, they can help stabilize and immediately get off the streets, where they can just take a few days to begin healing. And then really the goal is to get them into drug treatment, where they can begin the process of actually learning how to live drug and alcohol free over the course of a few months. And then we offer them the critical next step of recovery housing, because all that work, you need a place to practice that at. And that's where our recovery housing programs come into play. And over the course of 2 years, we do even offer for those who need additional support, independent living. And the Salvation Army is lucky enough to have a few units of permanent supportive housing. So we have this range of continuum that we're able to help people move from the streets to self-sufficiency over the course of 4 years or so. So where are we at today? We know that there's abundant need on the streets, and that in San Francisco in particular, the current mayoral administration has really pivoted toward a different approach than in previous administrations. And through his Breaking the Cycle initiative, the Salvation Army of San Francisco has been a real partner in achieving the goals and addressing this behavioral health crisis. So we've been a part of this and have opened up several programs. And the next slide actually is the realization of that previous slide that I shared earlier, where we have a number of programs all working in unison to help support people as they navigate this recovery system of care. We have Hope House, which is our newest, one of our newest programs. It's a recovery-focused shelter. It's the only recovery-focused shelter here in San Francisco, and we're really excited about the early results of that. We've partnered with other community-based organizations, Westside Community Services, to offer other stabilization so that people can, again, heal in either detox and drug-free shelter, get the treatment they need at Harbor Light or our other site, Pinehurst, and then they can practice what they learned while in treatment at one of our recovery housing sites, the Joseph McPhee Center or Wells Place. And additionally, we've created this community around, and through the course of these programs, we've created a larger community that really goes to living life outside of program. And how do you create that? By creating a larger alumni support network that supports people in their everyday lives outside of a program space. So we are very different in our approach to this. This is very long-term. This is not a quick fix in any way, shape, or form. We are investing people, and we're walking through people every step of the way. And with that comes sometimes challenges. We are a drug and alcohol-free space. And so when sometimes people falter and may have relapse, we provide, we have a no-fail policy, meaning that people can be transitioned to a more appropriate level of care. So all of these, again, speaks to the coordination behind a recovery system of care, not merely programs working independently of one another. I think that is the real key in all of this, the community piece and the coordination behind the scenes. And we are work-oriented. We are actively promoting people to get jobs right afterward and envision their lives post-program and what that would look like, and understand that getting a job, getting the building blocks to eventually get a career. So we've infused workforce services into our recovery system of care as well. And what does this all mean? This has been really exciting, our early results. We are now, I would say, Steve, 3 years into this? And we're really incredibly proud of the work that we've done. We've been able to deliver this initiative and achieve a 77% success rate, meaning those who've made it through our entire recovery system of care. And I really want to stress what success means, because people tout this everywhere. But success for us at the way out means that people are sober at the time of graduation, that they're employed, and that they have been housed. That's really big for people who've been disconnected from any level of support, or maybe from the workforce for some considerable time. And we're really, really proud to have achieved that. Last year, we served over 1,000 people, and we reduced homelessness by nearly 70,000 bed nights. The cost of this whole initiative is $31,000. To get somebody through the way out is really, although significant in the long term compared to other alternatives like permanent supportive housing or institutions, is a fraction of the cost. And so it's really, really important that we keep that in perspective as we try to come up with solutions on how we address this larger crisis. And I do want to point this statistic out. Last year, we conducted over 1,600 drug tests, and only 1% of those people were positive. That means that people are actually buying into it. This is not a pie in the sky idea. People actually want to change and live better. And so we just need to create the spaces, strengthen the continuum to make this possible. Because by doing so, we actually address, the root problems. I want to talk a little bit about our participants, because if we had a participant here today, you would be amazed by every one of their stories. And to hear that we have made significant impact in their lives is so rewarding. 88% of the people who went through our programs rated it excellent or good. They said that this program has changed their lives. They reported increased hope for their future, and that they responded better to daily challenges. This is meaningful as people are looking outward at their next, year post-program, 5 years post-program, how different their life was before the day they entered into the Way Out recovery system of care. Right now, we have various sites. This program, this slide illustrates our footprint here in San Francisco, and we have a really, I wouldn't call it a lofty goal, but we have a goal of helping every person who's struggling with addiction find a way out and help them reclaim their lives from addiction. And we know that's only possible by creating the infrastructure necessary to do that. Right? Whether that be from our front end and making sure that there's more entry points into a system and eliminating barriers, or supporting people on the back end where their turnover isn't as high and we just need that support. So we have a lofty goal of adding over 1,000 beds over the next 5 years. And this is the point in the program where people are like, how can I help? How can you get involved? And there is a way that you can help out. I think part of it is just being part of the conversation, learning more, getting to understand what are the root drivers of homelessness, as we shared, but also what are the ways in which we can disrupt it. You can follow us. You can come and see our sites. We welcome everybody to come and see it for themselves. We're just the messengers here. And we would love for you to be a part of this larger movement in a variety of these ways. We also have a gala on coming up in May as well. And just want to say thank you.
Wow, what a story. Thank you. I've got so many questions for you. So my first question is, I have so many, but the first one is, where did this idea come from? It's 3 years old in terms of its implementation.
Honestly, it's a long-term idea. You consider the Salvation Army was founded in London, England in 1865. William Booth, our founder, was pulling people off the street even then.
Wow.
And he actually wrote a book called, part of the title is The Way Out.
Oh.
And so the concept even then was taking people from the street back into what we consider normal lives. Mm-hmm. And so in essence, this replicates parts and pieces. In his day, it was farm colonies. The idea was to take people off the street and into farm colonies.
Okay.
Of course, times have changed, so now the idea is matured. And so when we looked at the challenge of homelessness in San Francisco, it only made sense to choose an idea and a practice that had worked in the past and now apply it to the modern day.
So thank you for that. I didn't know that Booth wrote a book that has The Way Out in the title. I'm going to check on that. I agree with you. It's a great title. So is this actually a part of the Salvation Army in San Francisco only, or is it a national program?
Utilizing the way we've done it is San Francisco, but the concept is utilized across the Salvation Army world. The idea of homelessness, the idea of detoxification, the idea of finding housing, transitional treatment. In what we call the Western Territory, the 13 Western states, we operate 18 drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities, which is a work therapy social model. In addition to that, we have a number of other shelters scattered all throughout these 13 Western states.
So the way out that you have been talking about is San Francisco specific?
It is the continuum of care that we've developed here, and where we're blessed, where we're fortunate, is we're able to offer somebody a part in that continuum of care from the street all the way through till they get into permanent housing. So we offer the detox component. We offer the rehabilitation component. We offer the transitional housing component. We offer them the opportunity to move into some form of permanent housing. So we're blessed in that we can offer every step. Not every community can do that. Would we like every community to do that? Of course. But we're also fortunate in that our relationship we have with the city and county of San Francisco, that they're willing to come alongside us and partner, that we have other partners, as Destiny alluded to, that we work with in the community to enact what we're doing. So it really is, it takes a village for us to make this happen.
So the Bay Area is comprised of many cities and towns. And so just across the bay, Oakland has homelessness problems, Alameda. So is this part of a bigger Bay Area vision, or are each of the groups or the cities working somewhat independently?
For us, we work primarily on the west side of the bay. The East Bay for us, organizationally, is a different division.
Okay.
So they carry out their plan a little differently than we do. But for us, ours is definitely on the west side down into San Mateo County. And then if you get into the Silicon Valley, we also have a shelter in that community as well that's ran by our unit there.
So I was talking to some folks in the Salvation Army in San Jose, and they said that, I believe I understood correctly, that in San Francisco, it's mainly men, and in San Jose, there were a lot of women. Is there a gender difference?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're actually looking at our next facility we open could be an all-women's facility because there is that type of demand within the community. So now, is it equitably distributed 50-50? No. I would say it's probably more 65-35, but the need is definitely there.
So this is a question for all three of you. So what is the root cause of this problem, would you say? You talked about it, Destiny, in the slide, but I didn't quite grasp that there is a root cause that's understandable. I asked the question because I was born and raised here. And, like much of the world, the city has changed a lot in my lifetime. And there didn't used to be so many obviously struggling people on the streets. It seems like it's been a growing problem. Do you know why this is? Is it because San Francisco has reasonably good weather compared to Wichita, Kansas, or is it a liberal governmental setting, or are there a variety of factors that you can talk a little bit about rather than just treatment further upstream? Maybe?
I can go first. I think it's a perfect storm in some ways. The Bay Area has the highest cost of living. We do have very liberal policies that attract people. There is the weather. So we have these very influences that we see. I think that really what the Salvation Army, the way out, is addressing is those who are struggling with addiction. And a lot of that, if I can find a common thread, is the lack of community. Because if we had these community in any way, shape, or form, we wouldn't see so much visible homelessness, whether that be with those who are struggling with drugs or maybe those who are, cycling in and out, maybe because they're just behind a few months in rent. But yeah, I think community is that common thread.
It's amazing you say that because I had some colleagues come from 4 Nordic countries. So Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. And we went on a walk through the Mission District. And They had never been to San Francisco before. And I have been to each of their capital cities, so I kind of know what street life is. And I said, why do you think this is happening here? And they said, well, it's obvious. I said, what? And they said, you have no community here. They go, the thing about America is everyone's trying to get ahead at everyone else's expense. It's all about money. And these poor souls, they just fall through the cracks and nobody cares. And then the Finns said, well, in Finland, it's constitutionally guaranteed that every person has housing, every person has treatment for any kind of alcoholism or addiction. We guarantee employment of some kind. Well, anyway, that's a social welfare system, which we don't really have. But to them, it was so obvious it was all about community. So it sounds like you have that in mind. Can you say more about how you great presentation. How are you actually building the community sustainably? Mm-hmm. Sustainably.
And it's really, if when you look at even the tenets of AA, it's built around community. It's built around that idea that we hold one another accountable, that no one person goes out alone, but that we are able to share and be with one another, be a part of one another, support one another. When we look at in the recovery circles, the idea that folks, whether men, women, etc., when they know they have a group to belong with and they have accountability, that provides that community. A subtle difference typically in many permanent supportive housing situations, the individual is in some type of an efficiency apartment, and they can go in that apartment and literally disappear. There's no accountability. There's nobody checking them. There's no sense, as you say, of community, of being a part of a bigger body. And with that, they tend to isolate. When they isolate, they get in their own head. When they get in their own head, they self-medicate. In other words, use drugs or alcohol or some other stimulant. What we find is folks that are in community and recovery programs, when in AA, the old tradition of the Oxford House, where multiple people live in one house and they hold one another accountable, we find the relapse rate is much, much lower because they're a part of that community. I can talk about in Portland, Oregon in the late 2000s, they were doing permanent supportive housing. And whether it was somebody who just was placed in there or somebody moved there from our program, we can guarantee at a certain point in time they would relapse versus the guys who moved into an Oxford House type tradition into that community. And that's really a part of what we do is we plug people in the groups. Yes, they do work with a case manager, but they do also have peer groups that they work together with. They go to different types of meetings, whether it's NA, et cetera. They're a part of studying what can they do to change. They're not allowed to isolate. Part of our staff's responsibility is even though they may live in a room like a hotel room by themselves, if somebody doesn't see somebody, there's somebody checking on them.
I see.
So it isn't just about being in recovery, but it's are you a participant in your recovery as well?
Robert, I want to go back to a point that you made is why is San Francisco's homeless problem so bad? I don't think that we adequately addressed it. I think San Francisco is a magnet for drug-related lawlessness. You can come to the city, you can live on the streets. They have drug dealers on the street corners. Nobody goes to jail. We have shut down an entire downtown mall. If you walk downtown, every third window is boarded up. And it's become this retainer for people to just come and exist. And I think for years, we've treated homelessness like a monolithic problem with a monolithic solution, meaning housing. And what we've demonstrated as a city is that response has not worked.
Right.
We've lost nearly 5,000 people to overdose in the last 5 years. We've reversed nearly 1 million overdoses in the last 5 years. And you can see most of those deaths 71% came in some type of government-funded housing. So the Salvation Army a few years ago started with 10 transitional housing beds on the campus of the Harbor Light Center. And our goal was to promote and incentivize people that were struggling with addiction on the streets to go into treatment. California Policy Lab produced a report in 2019 that said 75% of the people in California that were homeless struggled with drug addiction. It's a huge problem, whether they were drug addicts before they got to the street or became drug addicts when they were on the street. The reality is most people on the streets are using drugs, and they're using drugs publicly, and they're using drugs in front of children. They're using drugs in front of schools. They're living in encampments, and there's zero accountability. And I say this as somebody who spent most of his life locked up, that I was held accountable, and the accountability piece actually is what changed my life. It's uncomfortable for some people to hear, but the greatest gift I was given was state prison. And it really gave me an opportunity several times to think about how I was living my life. I am not saying the justice system is the best response for homelessness and drug addiction, but it's a tool that we've completely removed. And so the Salvation Army, given the landscape of the city, created a system of care that started with 10 beds and have turned it into a 550-bed system of care that spans 10 programs that really gets people off the streets immediately, helps them get off of drugs, teaches them how to live, gives them time to become financially independent, and then helps them reintegrate back into the community, go back to their children, and help raise their families. So given the landscape of the city's problem and the gravity of it, I felt like the Army was actually the leading response and is kind of taking a pivotal role in addressing the street conditions. Once Mayor Lurie got elected, over the past 12 months, I feel like there's been significant changes. The city is cleaning up, traffic is back, tourism is back, businesses are opening up. Just the energy has been incredible. And I think the city has kind of pivoted and it has changed directions, as you can see by the mayor's budget priorities. So I think the problem existed because we became a magnet for people to just come and exist on our streets, and nobody was held accountable for any type of behavior, which had a negative impact on the city itself.
Well, I mean, thank you so much for your candor and your honest personal response to that. I think that's something that we can all respect. I have to say, this is the first time I've heard a program combine, believe it or not, drugs, overdose epidemic, and homelessness. When I talk to many people about homelessness, when I say, why do you think this is happening? Almost everybody says, well, clearly they've lost their jobs or they've lost their minds, right? But I don't hear people talking about the drugs. And yet, Steve, you just said it is actually a central piece of this. Would that be correct? Did I understand you correctly?
I mean, the data Destiny just shared earlier is self-report data, and 55% of those counted in the point-in-time count stated that they struggle with addiction. I think that number is extremely low. I would defer to the California Policy Lab report in 2019, where it was more like 75%. I live in San Francisco. I used to live on 10th Street, across the street from Twitter. I would walk to work. I was a city employee at the time, and there was all kinds of encampments and people using drugs publicly in front of children, in front of schools, and it was a huge, huge problem. Destiny and I left the city in 2023. At the time, we led a division for a law enforcement agency. It was a reentry division. We were non-sworn staff where we had opened up around 60 programs in our tenure with the city because people in the justice system were doing just fine. They were getting housed, they were getting treatment, they were getting paroled, they were getting pardons. A lot of good things were happening in the justice system. When we started working at probation, there was 5,000 active clients on probation. When we left, there was less than 1,000. When we started, there was 190,000 people in state prison. When we left, there was less than 70,000. But people on the street weren't doing any better. So the city has not created solutions for people that were not in the justice system. It was kind of awkward. We used to have conversations like, you have to get busted to get help. And that seemed ridiculous to us. And so we joined the Army because we wanted to be part of the team that built a real solution to people who were on the streets for economic reasons, for reasons related to behavioral health, whether it be mental health or substance use, and really prioritize a system that incentivized helping people rebuild their lives instead of just housing people. I say this publicly often. When I just give somebody housing, I feel good. I did something for somebody. But when I give somebody back their lives, they feel good. And that's kind of the ethos of our work. We want to give people back their lives through a sequence of services, and housing is a key element of it. But it's something that people are part of the process in changing their lives, and really reclaiming their identity to who they were before they hit the streets.
That's very powerful. You mentioned Mayor Lurie. Would you say that there's a cultural change happening in San Francisco? You know, a commitment to other ways of governing this place that is relevant to your project? Is the city more supportive in other ways?
Most definitely, yeah. Most definitely. Just because they recognize that an abstinence-based program has a place in the continuum of care in San Francisco.
Okay.
What you have to remember is somebody didn't get on the street overnight. They're not going to get off the street and change their life overnight.
Yeah.
And so that's why his support of our continuum of care is important, because we're not looking for a spin dry. We're not looking to put somebody right back into a house because they'll fail. Our goal is to set them up for success long term. And I believe that's what the philosophy of the mayor's office is at this point in time. They recognize that we've tried all kinds of simple fixes and it's not worked, that it's going to take a more complex approach to make it happen.
Including the Justice Department? Is that what you were alluding to, Steve? A kind of a change in approach too?
Well, I mean, I think accountability is the cornerstone to recovery. And, you know, they used to say in 12-step groups, they still say it, you know, people that are addicted to drugs are promised three things: jails, institutions, and death. Well, California has removed the first two. And so we wonder why 5,000 people have died of overdose. And I'm not saying that the justice system is the place to get help, to get change. I actually think it's not, but we need to come up with a better alternative, and we haven't done that yet. And I think one thing that's happened in San Francisco that's been so phenomenal is that Mayor Lurie is focused on opening the right kind of beds that help people rebuild their lives, more than just housing. Anybody that's followed the news locally in San Francisco, they're shutting down all kinds of temporary housing sites that have really negatively impacted the neighborhoods. Sticking 100 people in a building designed for 60 that 85 to 90% of people are using drugs. The mayor and I toured a site in Union Square, and you know the site is set to close in the next 12 months, but the loss of hope that I could see in the people's eyes that were living inside was really heartfelt. I left that place with deep thoughts about how bad our approach has been to the drug and homeless crisis, that we didn't believe that people could really become the best of themselves. And in our work, it's just the opposite. We believe people can reach their full potential. I mentioned earlier, I spent several years in the justice system. Destiny and I oversee a leadership team of managers. They've all spent decades in the justice system. I was recently granted a pardon by the governor. And I'm an average person. People that work with me are much smarter. And I say this because merely if I can change, anybody can change. And really, the key to my life was I stopped getting loaded. The Department of the Center for Disease Control flew me to Texas to talk at an overdose convention. And I was shocked by the millions of dollars we invested in overdose prevention. And I opened up my segment with how I prevented overdosing. And it was very simple. I quit getting loaded. And it was such a novel concept to medical doctors that somebody could actually stop using drugs. And so, you know, I do say again, like our goal is to really provide hope to people that change is possible, that hope is possible, that you can raise your kids, you can hold a job, you can go back to school. I don't know, Robert, if you walked the streets of the city during COVID and you saw the despair in people's eyes living on the streets.
Yeah.
Those people were not even healthy enough to go into treatment if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. We'd allowed the system to fail them so much by not believing in them because the only solution at the time was they just needed housing. We would stick people in units. They would destroy the units. They would destroy their lives. They would often overdose and often die. Mm. And that was the best we could offer people. And the Salvation Army has done just the opposite. We have a complete continuum. We're the only organization in the city that provides everything from state licensed withdrawal management and residential treatment to permanent supportive housing and senior residences and a slew of transitional programs to fill out our continuum, all based on the concept of recovery and abstinence.
What a story. This is fascinating. Thank you for coming here and doing this. And for you coming to the audience, too. This is an amazing story. The city is filled with churches and synagogues and these types of places. And then they talk about hope, and I'm a member of a Episcopal church myself. So do you have a plan, or are you in the process of expanding your community to include groups that at least say they are committed to helping the disadvantaged? Or is it just the way out and the Salvation Army pretty much standing alone with the support of the city?
Well, we are part of a broader coalition of networks
I
of
want to hear about
community-based
that.
organizations.
Tell us more.
Well, just locally inside our current continuum, we partner, in addition to partnering with the city and county of San Francisco and several city departments, we actually partner with several community-based organizations, Westside Community Services, Positive Directions Equals Change, Code Tenderloin, and several others. And then we partner with several licensed treatment centers where we will house their graduates upon completion of treatment, Health Right 360, Friendship House, Latino Commission, and Epiphany Center. So there is a broader network of groups working together to address the crisis we see on our streets. And then organizationally, the major can share some of the broader work we're doing in prevention across the city.
So when we look at, one of the things you have to remember is the Salvation Army is a church as well. We're our own faith community.
Okay.
In the Methodist tradition.
Okay.
That's why we talk about when William Booth started. He was an evangelist preaching in the East End of London, and which was very much like today's San Francisco at that point in time.
Right.
And he was having revival meetings, and the goal was to move people from these revival meetings into the churches of that day. Fortunately, the churches of that day were more interested in what you could put in the coffers on Sunday than what they could put in your soul on a Sunday. Okay. And so they came back to him. And so he continued to build up, and that's where we became the Salvation Army. But we do continue to partner with folks all around, and we don't try to do it on our own.
Mm-hmm. Did you have anything on Destiny?
No, I was going to say that San Francisco is very service rich, and we're lucky enough to be part of coalitions that support the work. Steve and I are part of the reentry, the recovery. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out there. The reentry and treatment network, and we've held to build community in the past. Recovery summits, and just being part of the broader community who are trying to tackle this issue. And so I think that there's space for collaboration. All are welcome to the table, but we also at the same time acknowledge that we all have our own different recipe or different sauce that we bring to this work.
You know, my experience of the Salvation Army historically has been at Christmas time, someone stands next to a red bucket, right? And obviously that's an extremely limited experience. What can you say about how to expand public awareness of the Army itself? There's just a lot of the things you've talked about today are new to me. And they may be new to some people in the audience, either online or in this room. And we'll get to your questions in just a moment. Say something more about how the Army presents itself to the public. You know, if we were to go out on the street and grab 100 people and say, "What do you know about the Salvation Army?" Do you know what the answers would be? Have you tested that, or would many people say, "Oh yeah, the red bucket and the bell"?
And that's typically what you would hear, and that the homeless, there are people.
I see. Okay.
Those are kind of the two pieces, or they would think of us as sometimes as a part of our disaster service work. The Army, we are not the best at tooting our own horn.
I think that's true.
Now, we do have brass bands we do toot a horn, but we're not the best at tooting our own horn because really we try to get out and get our shirt sleeves rolled up and get to work.
Okay. And
bring other people along. Now, do we do a lot of work in the digital world? Yes. In the social media? Yes. From other types of PR? Yes. Could we do more? Oh, there's probably more, but I find that our best connection are these types of connections.
Okay.
Having these one-on-one personal conversations with somebody and bringing them in to see what's going on. Because it's only then that you realize the breadth and depth of what we're doing. Simply because we work with Clear Channel. Clear Channel has been incredibly generous to us. And we have on the bus stops, digital bus stops signs around the city are messages about our program. And for the next year, there'll be additional messages that'll go out about programs and services we offer.
Okay.
But it's in those types of ways we're trying to be tangible in our approach to folks so that they actually get a glimpse and an opportunity to scan a QR code and to see more about the work we're doing. Or as simple as you asked earlier about taking a tour. We're more than happy to take people on a tour of our program and introduce them to the services that we provide. But really, the definition of the Army has always been Christianity with its shirt sleeves rolled up. And that's really what we do.
I believe our biggest spokespeople are our participants, our graduates of our programs themselves. They walk out and they see friends who might be struggling and they ask them to come along and then we'll walk them to the front door of a treatment center. And so I think that over time, we will see more and more people get out there. We're 3 years in. I think we've already seen the fruits of our labor. And again, they are our biggest, I would say, messengers of the work.
Yeah, our Uber driver today was one of our folks.
Is that right? Wow. So I don't know if the audience knows this, but this program is actually being filmed, and it will be edited and packaged movie house quality, and it'll be available free of charge, both in a video and an audio format, in about 4 days' time. And so you can send that link to anyone in the world and say, have a look at this amazing group of folks and what they're doing. And you know, at first I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we had 10,000 people in the audience here today? And in fact, we don't. But in fact, we might have 10,000 people in the audience if they watch the film. And it's not one of these things that's made on a little smartphone. It's kind of grainy. This is like going to the theater and seeing a proper. So I encourage all of you to in about a week or less, look online under video and audio, and you can share this with your friends. Now, Catherine has offered to pick up questions, and I did see a few hands moving over in this direction. I'd love to have a couple of questions from you, and if you don't have a card, there are some other ones. Thank you. If I may?
Go for it.
Okay. Why has the Tenderloin remained such a difficult area to quote-unquote turn around after all these years?
I mean, do you want the honest answer? It feels to me like they've made it a containment zone, that they've just allowed activity to exist. I know the current administration, the mayor, and the supervisor, Mahmoud, are very committed to changing that. And, you know, the tragedy of the whole thing, it's the largest population of school-age kids that have to experience this thing. I could not imagine being a child walking by people actively using drugs, overdosing, nodding out and falling out on the street, watching crime happen in front of you. It's sad. And I do really hope that the city, I feel, is really going in the right direction. And I really do hope that we can finally say one day that the Tenderloin is safe and clean, and there's opportunities for children to play in the streets. We have a really big impact in the Tenderloin. We have a youth center called the Kroc Center that runs an abundance of programs. It's filled every day. It's an after-school place for children. And I really hope that we can actually start enforcing the law a little bit more in the Tenderloin to clean up the streets. Supervisor Dorsey said this, not me. I do really like this quote, and I said it earlier on in the program, but San Francisco has become a magnet for drug-related lawlessness. And I think in order for us to pivot completely and really straighten up as a city, the first thing we need to do is address public safety. And so we need to turn the Tenderloin from a containment zone where we just allow chaos and public drug use and drug sales to a place it's a place where you're not going to come to use drugs and destroy our city.
We actually have seen improvement in the Tenderloin. I think of several years ago, I was here for meetings, and stayed in that area. And I see the difference now from what it was at that point in time. So I think change is taking place, but it is incremental. It is intentional. Steve mentioned our Ran Joan Kroc Community Center there is a part of our outreach to those children that are in that community. When you consider there's 14 different languages that are spoken in that area, it's a very challenging opportunity, but one that we're willing to step up and be a part of, because we see intervention right now with that age group as being the most important thing, so that we're not having to do recovery and rehabilitation down the road.
You know, it's interesting you use that term containment zone, because when I've driven through there, I often thought in terms of it's like a corral where it seems like there's a demarcation. It seems like, like I'm a theme park, right? Something happens in the park and it doesn't happen outside the park. And I never see a cop on the beat. I mean, it's like they said, everybody go there and do what you're going to do, and we won't bug you. Now, that was my unprofessional assessment of it. And when you said containment zone, I remembered thinking that. I think that's completely true, because it's not citywide, if you think about it. It's not everywhere, but that is like a theme park for lawlessness. Oh my God, did I just say that on the camera? Okay, here we go. Blame me. Okay, second question. Cameras are interesting. Why, despite $30 billion in spending by Sacramento, has homelessness increased in San Francisco? Is there accountability in how government funding has been effective or not?
It's not just in San Francisco. In Modesto, we currently operate a 400-bed low-barrier shelter. Low barrier meaning that folks can come into the program either high or under the influence of drugs. And we're in the process of working to convert that shelter to an abstinence space. But let me tell you, it's an uphill climb, because it requires a shift in thought of the community, and a shift in thought from saying we simply want to warehouse people and get them off the street to actually saying we want to shift the philosophy to we want to help people to stay off the street so they can live life on life's terms, not on the terms of whatever the substance that they're under. So it's really that change. So it's not just Sacramento. If their dollars are going out, we're pushing the envelope. We're saying to folks, well, it says you can only do this, but why? Can we not push back and say there's a different program that we want to offer? In fact, we've had city and county officials from Sacramento over here for a tour of our programs and to be a part of understanding how the Way Out Initiative works. So it's going to take a groundswell from the ground up to push the government to be more accountable. It's not, I'll be honest, they're not going to police themselves. They've proven they can't do that. Saying things on the camera, right? They've proven they can't do that. It's going to take us as the population, as the voters, to hold people accountable to what they're doing with those dollars. And let me tell you, $30 billion to me is a waste. When we look at what the dollars have been spent in San Francisco, which really is a key component of Mayor Lurie's push to change the methodologies that we're using to address the situation. It's because he's recognized it's been money wasted. Open air drug markets, needle exchanges are not the solution. I mentioned Oregon earlier. Oregon went to the concept of we make drugs now legal. They now have since rescinded that because they figured out, that didn't really work. I want to say, duh. But what happened with that is it actually pushed out of business recovery and rehabilitation facilities, including one we operated in Portland. Because if you can use, I don't need a program.
Right.
And I believe that we have to begin to enforce what we're doing. Even as Steve has talked about, law enforcement now feels empowered within San Francisco to be able to arrest people, and that there'll be a path that they can push them through in order to keep them off the street. So it still comes down to individual choice. A person still has to want to choose to change, but we can be a part of that offering to them.
Robert, one last thing to add to the major on that is that California's homeless response has been driven by Senate Bill 1380, which is the Housing First Law. It's a one-size-fits-all approach to ending street homelessness. Driven through that bill is the Welfare and Institutions Code 8255, which limits what can happen in a Housing First model program. The interesting thing about the model is, say, if we have 8,000 homeless people in San Francisco, I want to share how much it would cost to solve homelessness for those 8,000 people. To build one building in San Francisco of 100 units is about $1 million a unit, or $100 million to build that building for the 100 homeless people. Startup costs in Housing First programs range from $250,000 to $1 million. In San Francisco, with construction costs, it's about $1 million a unit. And then you're going to pay rent, $50,000 a year per person for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
Destiny showed you the increase of spending. That was only one city department. It was the Department of Homelessness. They increased spending by 544% over the last decade on homeless services. Last year, their budget was $713 million. Wow. $400 million of it did not go to solve homelessness. $400 million of it went to pay the rent of people who were not homeless. Wow. And the crazy part of the whole bill is nobody's incentivized to get better or you lose your apartment. So the people that are going through our system of care, which lasts 4.5 years, and I want to share that the cost of it is free, that people that are in our services that get off of drugs and get clean and get a job, they're no longer chronically homeless, and they make more than 30% of area median income, so they qualify for no support from the government. So what do you tell people that can't find housing? Go to the streets, use drugs, the government will take care of you. Wow. It's the exact opposite message that we're sharing. Wow. So Destiny mentioned that we are a fraction of the cost of the current standard Housing First model. And often it's really driven by ideology and often advocate groups. And now, even more so, groups that were really trying to build up the city, like YIMBY, which was actually good, are now using state money just to pencil out jobs in the city. There's a hearing tomorrow at City Hall that's being led by Supervisor Dorsey about building more sober housing, and he's getting pushback from several advocate groups. So state law needs to change, lawmakers need to change, people need to start speaking up and getting involved in their communities, because it's going to take really all of us to not only improve San Francisco, but to really get involved and save our state.
Well, we've come to nearly the end of this quite remarkable program, I must say. Exceeded my expectations in every way. I've learned so much, and I do want to have a tour. But before we go on the tour, I'd like each of you to leave our audience, both in person, online, and then for those that will watch the video. What is the single most important message that each of you want to get across today? Destiny?
I want to leave a message that recovery is possible. What we see on the streets doesn't have to be. It can be transformed, but it takes action and persistence.
Go, Steve.
Well, to play off of Destiny, I would say that also change is possible, and that we often count people out that we don't believe that can become the best of themselves. And we have hundreds of people each day demonstrating that that is not true, that we see people that have lost all hope enter our programs, and over time, their eyes brighten up. They start to smile. They reunite with their family. They're going back and raising their children. They're holding jobs and they're going to school. And that really is what our work is about, hope. And it is possible. And I would love for you to join us, tour our sites, and really see the work that we're doing firsthand and the impact we're making on the community. So I will leave you with one thing, and that is that hope is possible.
Thank you, Steve. Major Z?
Be a part of the solution. We can't do it in a vacuum. We can't do it by ourselves. It is truly going to take a village. It's going to take a community to solve the problem. So I encourage you to be a part of the solution, whether that's voting for the people that want to really make a change, whether it's using your own resources to contribute and be a part of that change, whether it's giving of your time to be a part of that change. Any one of those can help, but it's really be a part of the solution, because we are a solution-oriented group. And folks that want to be a part of that solution, we're more than happy to welcome you aboard.
So if we look at the slide up on the screen, will it ever end? My final note is yes. With a team like this and a program like this, I think it is a possibility. So I'd like to thank all three of you for presenting this outstanding program and for your commitment to your brothers and sisters who live in San Francisco. I'd like to thank the audience in person and those of you in this audience who helped make this happen, like June Sargent, who's an amazing supporter of this program. For those of you on the board, thank you. For those of you watching and those who will see this video, let's go on a tour. Let's learn more about this, and let's do everything we possibly can to help support this amazing initiative. Thank you.